Joining me now is former federal prosecutor, former Pentagon official, retired Navy JAG officer, and national security expert. That's a long list. That's good stuff. Don Brown. Don, the midterms are coming up, and you got the IRGC is obviously very aware of the political calendar here. You got negotiations now stretched out for 60 days. Each day that goes by, who is that a win for, if you will? I mean, we've got our elections. They're trying to buy time. Apparently, they're getting, money unfrozen. So each day that goes by, who helps?
Rob, thanks for having me. I've been interviewed on this situation ever since the fighting broke out and predicted that it would be over by June. Now, does being over by June mean that we are in a pause that's going to last for several months, or are we done for good? Yes, the IIRG is looking at the political situation. President Trump has to get gasoline prices down to help Republicans. That's going to happen. But they better keep an eye on the United States military. President Reagan famously used to say of the Soviets, trust but verify. And in this case with the Iranians, based on their track record, it's verify, 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 and then don't trust until there's a track record to cause you to trust. So they are looking at the political situation. This may be partially politically driven, but as Alex pointed out a moment ago, we're seeing oil moving through the strait. We're seeing gasoline prices drop precipitously. I heard one of your earlier reports. I think the president is going to drive the midterms, it looks like, on the question of the Save America Act and try to get prices down and force voters to take a look at who's for it and who's against it. So the Iranians better watch what we have coming to them in November if they don't fully cooperate with what the president wants them to cooperate to, including absolute inspections of nuclear sites, getting rid of nuclear weapons, and basically leaving the straits alone, or they're going to have it coming back to them, I believe.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about the diplomatic dance that's going on right now. So Iran is saying, hey, we never agreed to inspections, right? The Iranian president, during a visit to Pakistan, said that the missile program, nuclear, not open for discussion with the United States. I mean, Trump has publicly said that's not correct. That's not what they wrote down on the paper and what we agreed to. Is a little bit of the IRGC and the Iranian leadership playing to their domestic audience? I don't know why they would have to. I mean, they just kill people who disagree with them. But what do you think is going on here?
Well, the Iranians are a classic example of the old saying that's popular in these parts, that talk is cheap. It's almost like the Baghdad Bob in some ways, going back to the Iraqi war. You can't believe anything that they say. And you can't believe what the administration is saying. There's always confusion in the fog of war. But they are playing, yes, to their domestic audience, even though they might not need to, and trying to play to other regional opponents there who are some of the Sunni nations there around the Gulf. And so they're talking a big game. They go one day, they've closed the strait, the next day they haven't, but there are ships moving and oil is moving. So the credible evidence seems to side with the administration's point of view here. So I wouldn't pay a whole lot of attention to what they're saying. It's what are they doing? You judge them by their actions, not by their bombast in this case. And that's what we really have to pay attention to, I believe.
So I wanted to talk to you one quick question about what happened here yesterday in the Senate, right? So they passed the War Powers Act, with Democratic support. Trump says, I'm gonna veto that, and it's meaningless. But it does send a signal, I think, to Iran, right, that he doesn't have the full backing and support domestically. I mean, the polling is one thing, but also from the legislature, right? When you've got some Republicans breaking and saying, they're going to try to rein him in, our own president. How does that play when you're trying to negotiate from strength?
Well, it shows the War Powers Act that we are a constitutional Republican debate issues. I'm sorry, it shows the Iranians that we are a constitutional republic. The War Powers Act itself, since it was passed in 1973, the constitutionality of it has been questioned in one form or another by every president since it was passed, since Nixon. And really, you look at the terms of the act, if you have a concurring resolution in the future requiring the president to withdraw, the president under the act's got to withdraw, but that's not a bill. That violates the Constitution's presentment clause, Article 1, Section 7. So it's not enforceable. And you've got a few rogue Republican senators like Cassidy and Collins and Murkowski and Tom Tillis here from North Carolina that are going to be problem children anyway in the Senate. It was passed by the Senate with some rogue Republicans joining the Democrats. I would not really read too much into that at all. It's not going to stop the president at all in determining to get nuclear weapons away from the Iranians.
Yeah, and who would think Fetterman is voting with Republicans? Let's talk about the NATO chief. I know, crazy times. So you got the NATO chief, Rutte. He stressed that, despite the complaints from Trump in the White House, over some of the unwillingness of European allies to kind of allow U.S. forces to operate out of their bases and really give a lot of help during this Iran military operation. He did say many NATO allies support the U.S. through the conflict. Here's what he said.
When you look at the numbers, 4,000 to 5,000 U.S. planes taking off from bases in Europe. In the 6 weeks this war took place, still the ceasefire took place mid-April.
We're allowed to take off from bases that we have contracts with. But, other than that, how much did they do?
Very little, really. The British have been extremely disappointing. They've been probably our number one military ally since the beginning of World War I, refused to let us fly out of RAF Fairfield. And then there's the whole thing with the Diego Garcia, one of the most important military bases in the world, in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Yeah. Most Americans haven't heard of it. The Brits didn't want us flying out of there, trying to give it back, to the Mauritius Islands, which would be a huge strategic mistake. President Trump has, at least I believe, put the brakes on the British giving that a toll away, and if necessary, I think the U.S. military should take it. I think the trend is in the right direction. The General Secretary there is talking the right way. Some disappointing actions from various prime ministers, including the German prime minister, the British prime minister, and the Italian prime minister, and complaining a lot about our military flying out of some of those bases. But I'm glad to know that he thinks that they're supporting the action, at least covertly, if they aren't saying so aloud. We'll have to see how it plays. I'd hate to see NATO disintegrate over this, but the allies have got to step their game up a little bit.
They do. Don Brown, always good to have you. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.